Josh Thompson did a very interesting piece, and he was talking about the biggest problem that Islam has is Benny Dariush. Now, I don't know that he's wrong at all, and neither do you guys. And you remember when that fight was going to happen? Real question, do you remember when that fight was going to happen? Because a lot of you said no. Those of you that said no, you've got the right to forget that fight. It wasn't a memorable contest. It wasn't going to be for a championship. It wasn't even going to be a main event, as I recall. Benny and Islam were going to fight. Something happened with Benny. Insert Bobby Green. Whoa. We kind of start to get Islam after that fight. I mean, Bobby had just beaten up Fedzayev. They took the decision from Bobby, but Bobby had just gotten done beating up Fedzayev. Okay. Now all of a sudden we understand Islam's pretty good. Well, what are we going to do with Benny? Because we're mad at him, right? We're mad at him. That fight was meant to be a throwaway. It was just put together and shoved over here, but it turned out the crowd started looking around and going, no. We want that one. So what do? Well, Dana rolls into a press conference. I believe it was Kevin Iole. Could have been John Morgan. Right off the top, somebody asks him, are you going to put Islam and Benny together? And Dana said, I was going to. Joe Rogan just grabbed me in the hallway and told me not to. You guys remember that matzo ball that they just left hanging out there and never told us why? Never told us why Joe said that. Never told us why Dana was listening to Joe. Never told us what to do in the meanwhile, and I thought it was a pretty compelling statement. I think Joe's argument had nothing to do with don't put them together. They're both great guys. I don't think so. I think what Joe's belief was is, hey, put Islam in a title fight. Once that gets situated, bring Benny in. Don't have them eliminate each other now. In contendership. Do it for championship, I think. To which Joe most certainly, in hindsight, would have had right. So, how do you get Benny in there? And I started this 2 minutes ago, guys, asking you, do you remember when that fight was going to happen? Because if you do, then you'll remember when fighters started to weigh in on it and they started to pick Benny. And then they started picking Benny again and again and again. And then you finally heard somebody speak up for Islam, and then it went right back to Benny. The fighters were picking Benny. That's very compelling, right? The boys in the locker room know. They know every single time who's who. And they were saying it's Benny. That's very interesting to me. And that just kind of supports Josh Thompson's claim. Josh Thompson was a 155-pounder. He's a great 155-pounder. He comes from the AKA. Islam Makhachev comes from the AKA, right? I mean, it's one of these things where Josh would have inside information, and he's saying, look, this guy's a problem. Benny's a real problem. So what do? How do we get Benny in there? I don't think, and there's a lot of talk right now about Benny and Poirier. I'm good with it. Of course I'm good with it, right? But I don't think that is anywhere in comparison, not even in the same galaxy. In terms of what should happen is extremely clear. Benny Dariush should be fighting Charles Oliveira. That's exactly what should be happening. And Charles has been very quiet. I was not overly gracious to Charles when he was champion, and that was on accident. In all fairness, the topics that just kept coming up, right? I'd have a little bit of a hotter take. It wasn't because I didn't appreciate what was happening, but I will share with you, I don't understand what has been happening since he lost that belt. I don't understand what it is he's waiting for. I don't understand why he hasn't spoken up. I know that making 155 pounds is very difficult for Charles. And I know if you're taking this kind of time off, wherever you go, whoever your opponent is, my first prediction is he won't make weight. Every day that goes by without a fight, without a camp, without training, without preparation, without proper motivation, makes it less likely that he's going to beat the scale. It's a very real talk when you're dealing with Charles. Now, I'm okay with that. He's got the shoulders, he's got the height, and he's got the length to be a 170-pounder. And if he was keeping his mouth shut and staying quiet just a little bit with a secret plan of coming in at 170, it would be interesting. I mean, here, let me just play out a scenario for you guys. Kamaru Usman isn't going to show up to fight Leon. We got the fight book. March is around the corner. What's it, March 11th, March 13th? It's coming. Leon can't do it. Now, people assume that George Masvidal is going to do it. Those people are known as fools. What do? Who goes in? Who takes it? Now, just imagine. You're never told Kamaru's out. That's all handled quietly. You don't know anything. You wake up one day and you see the announcement. Leon versus Oliveira for the belt in March 170. You buyers or you sellers? Do you understand who we get to that point? And if something like that is in the works, I'm very open to the idea. But otherwise, I do think that it's a big miss. I think that Charles was more loved than maybe Charles knew. I think the night that Charles fought Justin Gaethje on the heels of the eve of being stripped and the debacle on the scale, and then when it gets reported that that was the biggest drawing pay-per-view of the year, which came after, just to remind you, Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou. I think that's when Charles can really find out, man, people are interested in him and people like him. And one of the great laws of the marketplace is supply and demand. So perhaps Oliveira is just taking all the supply away, but he's in the back and he's preparing. Perhaps. That seems a bit fictional by me. I believe if he's quiet and his team is quiet and social media is quiet, that he's not in the gym. And if he's not in the gym, he's not likely to make 155 again. If he is going to make 55, sooner rather than later, Oliveira versus Benny Dariush, that's the fight.